And we're back with the translations. No healing was spoken about. Blast just has his arm back, which means that it is either gonna be a redraw, which is the most likely. I seriously doubt one of Murata just forgot. It could also be that like after Blast tried to fuse, he got his arm back, but that doesn't really make sense either because Void got his swords back. So I think we're pretty much just like almost for certain going to get a redraw of the previous chapter where Blast lost his arm in order to make this continuity make more sense. I really think Murata should have said something to us or warned us about that. But hey, you know, it's their story. I guess they'll just do whatever they want. And we get explained in this chapter that when Blast tried to fuse with Empty Void, they were both able to have visions of their past. And essentially, Blast got to see Void taking the power of God and what his motives are. And essentially, like, we learn that his motives, what he's really trying to do is create an army to go fight against God. So we learn that, like, he's not even really a bad guy. He's trying to create all of these God avatars, like turn Sonic and Flashy Flash into God avatars. But his plan at the end was to sacrifice himself and release his energy that he had absorbed from Garou, the resistance to God. And in doing that, it would liberate all of the God avatars and they could all fight God together. So he's trying to create an army of liberated God avatars, which I believe that Blast may be one. He may be a liberated God avatar because it seems like he took God's powers and he somehow was able to escape, but we still don't have confirmation on that. He just says that he has this power of darkness, which counters, God's power of light. So we'll get some more explanation on that pretty soon. So Blast seems like he's really shocked, but in the upcoming panels, he pretty much announces, or Void acknowledges, that Blast knew he was getting played this entire time. Void had sent Luna, his sister, or Maya, to marry and wife up Blast so they could figure out who the secret scientist was that Blast was working with. But it turns out Blast knew the whole time that that's what they wanted. And so I'm not really sure like what that exactly accomplished besides Blast like maybe getting verification of what he assumed all along or something like that, or literally just giving us that so the reader would be introduced to a new character that explains more of the relationship between Blast and Void. But it didn't really seem to do too much. We learned about, there's some secret scientist character and Void's like, oh, you knew about the scheme. And so now Blast, he's all confident now. In the previous chapter, he seemed completely distraught. He lost his arm and etc. He just seemed like they nerfed him into the ground. And now he seems like he's Chad again. He says, I can see through lies. I like strong people. And that's about it. So, Blast is also trying to recruit Void to go fight against God. But essentially this vision that Blast got has shown him that Void is not evil. And in fact, he desperately wants to go battle against God. And what that means is that Void is going to become a good guy here. He's going to join the team and they're going to use him in the battle against God. Whether that means to spread his Garou power of resilience of God against God to all these other people so that none of them can, essentially be controlled by God. Or we also know that he just simply has this power to open what's called the Gate of the Celestial Rock Cave, in which God is imprisoned there. So that's what Blast said earlier. That's the real thing. He wants to rescue Empty Void so that Empty Void can open this gate so that they can go and fight against God. And so it seems like that's what we're going to get. Like, are we leading into the War on God arc this early? Is this more just foreshadowing of the final arc? And then we're going to jump back to Blue and all the Neo heroes. That's probably going to happen. I mean, I think what they're doing here is the difference between the manga and the webcomic is that the manga has way more emphasis on the final arc of the series. The webcomic just simply kind of jumps from arc to arc. And I think one of Murata decided that like, hey, we want to like emphasize God and this big battle that's coming at the end of the series. So we're going to continually bring in Blast and all these characters and have all this development so that we can hype up the great final arc. Question is, when are we going to get that? I mean, it could be simply just right after the Mad Cyborg arc. Some other people like Zonin, he believes that there's way too many other questions we have to answer and too much ground to cover, and the War on God arc won't be for many years, but we'll have to see. I mean, first we got to find out exactly who the Mad Cyborg is. But look at this. In any case, Void has been played playing everybody all along. He's going to pretend to remain under God's control and even defeat the heroes and even increase the God avatars. But in the end, he would exchange his own life to divide all of his power among them, the power that opposes God that he took from Garou. And he punches himself through the chest with one of the dark cubes, releasing all of his power onto all these like monster, I guess, ninja God avatars. And then they all go up and jump and fight against God. So I don't think that this is going to actually happen anymore, but Blast being able to see that that is Void's intention literally is just giving him the signal that, oh, we don't actually have to be fighting anymore. So I think that this fight will get interrupted or just end, and Void just simply becomes a good guy. But if God is watching, can he take Void's power away and kill him like he did to Homeless Emperor? Or because Void has the resilience of Garou, maybe God can't do that. Even though maybe Void has God's power, maybe God just simply can't steal that power away and kill you as a God avatar like he seems like he can do to anybody else that took his power. So now we're going to have a good guy God avatar that can attack from outside reality. Like, let's go. We need that to fight against God. You know what I'm saying? And so I think, long story short, what's going to happen here is we're going to get a redraw of the previous chapter. Blast also mentioned teleportation in this chapter and not fusion. So almost certainly getting a redraw. Blast will almost certainly not get his arm cut off. And maybe we'll get some sort of explanation. But I think One and Murata may have rushed this chapter to get it out for Christmas, and they maybe got a little bit sloppy or something. We definitely should have got some sort of statement. It's just so weird that a mangaka would do that, just like cut off a character's arm and then just like forget about it in the next chapter. So we'll see what he says and what he does. But in any case, it's at least good that Daddy Blast is back to his high-ranking status. He's no more just a fraud, and we're getting closer and closer to the War on God arc. We now have an ability to recruit God avatars, which is sick, and so that's going to turn into something delicious down the line. I find it really interesting that Murata and One are putting so much emphasis on Garou because, yes, he was a huge part of the story and the webcomic and the manga, but after he's defeated in the webcomic, like you see him a couple more times, like I think he's like a delivery guy or something, but here in the manga, like they're making his story carry through to the end of the series. Like Garou's resilience to God is now becoming a central point of the story, in that a human could have such a big ego that they could even resist God, and that like level of resilience can spread to others. This is becoming extremely important because if other humans can adopt that ideology or whatever, that resilience to God, it's going to help them a great deal in their big battle against the big bad. So very interesting stuff. I think if you're a Garou fan, you're probably really excited right now because they're essentially saying, even though he was already one of the most important characters of the story, he's now even more important, way more important, because he's such a critical member to the story that it's possible that if he was never in the story, they wouldn't be able to beat God, even though he's already an enemy that's defeated. So he's been raised up in terms of importance, and I think that also means he could potentially have a return. And I would love to see Garou come back in the fight against God. If you've ever seen CMing Lab's fan manga of One Punch Man vs. God, he makes Garou look real good in the battle against God. Unfortunately, he gets messed up. So maybe we'll get something like that. But I want to hear from you guys in the comments down below. Let me know what you think. And honestly, I'm pretty pumped.